Let's now make a few final adjustments before we conclude our working for shot number 4. First of all, I want to erase a few grass instances from here because I think they're getting in the way of that sci-fi whole bike in the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into the foliage mode, and I'm just going to bring this window here. I'm going to select these static meshes, and I'm just going to move this window there. And yeah, let's now erase a few of these instances from here that are getting in the way. I'm just gonna press and hold shift on my keyboard and erase these instances from here. Yeah, I think it looks good. Perhaps I could erase a few instances from here as well. And let's see. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Let's move this playhead. Oops, first I have to go into the selection mode. I'm just gonna press shift 1 on my keyboard to go back into the selection mode. And let me see. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Okay. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so the second thing that I want to adjust in here is I want to add a little bit of bigger foliage instances in here around these assets, because right now they don't look so good and they are kind of hidden behind the sunlight and hidden in the shadowy side of that asset. So I'm just going to go back into foliage mode by pressing shift 3 on my keyboard, and let's bring this window here. I'm going to make sure all these static meshes are selected. And let's scroll down. First of all, I'm gonna bring down the density to 1000. And let's set the minimum value to 2 and maximum value to 3. I think that's not gonna be enough. So let's start by setting the minimum value to 3 and maximum value of 4. Okay, so I'm gonna now bring this window here, and let's split this window. And let me adjust my view and get closer to that asset. Yeah, I think I'm gonna first of all work on this one. Which one is it? Yeah, there it is. It's this one right here. So let's move this playhead maybe just about there. And of course, I don't need this window. I'm just gonna close it. Let's now paint some foliage over here. Oops, it's pretty dense at the moment. So let's erase this. I'm gonna bring this window here. And I think 1000 is way too much. Let's set this to 100. Yeah, let's now paint some foliage, and there we go. I want to paint a few instances in here as well. Okay, let's enlarge this window and see how it looks like. Yeah, I think it looks good, but perhaps we can do one better. I think I should increase the size a little bit more. I'm just gonna erase these instances from here real quick. And let's open up the foliage settings again. I'm gonna set the minimum value to 5 and maximum value to 6. Let's see now what happens. I'm gonna bring this window here. I think, you know what? Let's set the minimum to 4. Not 2, 4. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna enlarge this window. And yeah, I think now it looks a lot better. I'm gonna split this window and let's move on to the other asset. Let's say this one, I believe. Yeah, first of all, I'm just gonna erase these instances from here that I painted beforehand. And let's now paint some new instances. I'm gonna enlarge this window. Yeah, it looks better. Looks pretty good. Perhaps what we can do in here is to set the maximum value to, let's say, 8. And I'm just going to close this window. I'm going to split this window, and let's move on to the other asset. Where's this one? Let me see. I think it's this one. Yeah, I'm just going to erase the previous instances first of all. And let's now paint some new ones. Yeah, looks pretty good. I'm gonna now move on to the next one. I think it's this one. I'm just gonna erase these instances and paint some new ones. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. We have one more asset over here, which I think is somewhere around here. Yeah, there it is. Let's paint some instances over here as well. Um, Perhaps the density is a little bit too much. So I'm gonna bring this window here and let's bring it down to 50, let's say. Yeah, I think now it looks a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, next up we have this asset. I'm just gonna remove these instances from here. Let's bring some foliage. Yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, let's enlarge this window and see if we can paint some more assets. I think we can paint around this one. So I'm gonna split this window and let me see. Yeah, there it is. I'm gonna erase these instances and paint some new ones. I'm gonna enlarge this window and yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I'm gonna press Shift 1 to go back into selection mode and let's move this playhead and see how this thing actually looks like. Perhaps I want to erase the foliage instances around this one maybe and paint some more instances over here. I'm gonna split this window and let me see which one is it. I'm gonna press Shift 3 on my keyboard to go back into the foliage mode. Which one is it? I'm just gonna select it manually. I'm gonna enlarge this window. Yeah, there it is. I'm gonna split this window and press F to focus. Yeah, there it is. Let's unhide the foliage instances. Okay, let me adjust my view. And I'm gonna press Shift 3 on my keyboard to go back into the foliage mode. And I'm just gonna erase these foliage instances from here. But I just want to paint some new instances over here, maybe. Yeah, over here. I'm just gonna erase these instances. And let's paint some new ones, like so. And let's enlarge this window. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I'm gonna press Shift 1 on my keyboard to go back into selection mode. Okay, so the next thing that I'm gonna adjust in here is to add maybe a little bit more these rocks and stones on the top of the basic surface because I still see a few empty patches and a flat surface. So I'm just gonna split this window and I'm gonna select this asset. I'm gonna press F to focus. There it is. I'm gonna select these assets from here. And let's create a duplicate copy of these assets on y-axis to just about there. Let me get closer to these assets and I'm just gonna move them up on z-axis to just about there, I guess. And I'm gonna move them on y-axis and bring them maybe somewhere around here, let's say. And I think I'm gonna bring them down on z-axis to just about there, I guess. Perhaps I should bring this down on Z to just about there. And I'm gonna create another duplicate copy on y-axis. Let's let me get closer to these assets. I'm gonna bring them up on Z to just about there. And I'm going to move them and bring them maybe somewhere around this area, perhaps. Okay, let's create another duplicate copy and bring them maybe just about there. I'm going to rotate them on Z-axis like so. And let's move them maybe somewhere around here. I'm going to enlarge this window to see how it looks like. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Perhaps we should place a few more assets over here. I'm going to split this window and let me adjust my view. I'm going to create a duplicate copy and bring these assets somewhere around here, let's say. I'm going to press F to focus and let's move them on X-axis to just about there. I'm going to move them up on Z as well to just about there, I guess. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Perhaps a few assets in this area as well. So let me just adjust my view real quick. And I'm going to create a duplicate copy of these assets and bring them maybe somewhere around this area. Okay. Yeah, looks pretty good. Let's save everything. And the next thing that I want to adjust in here is to animate these propellers. Let me just select them from here and I'll unlock the sequencer. I'm going to move this window up here and let's bring this window here. I'm going to select this one and bring it into the sequencer. And let's move to frame number 0. And I'm going to open up this drop down menu, go into the rotation, and I'm going to press F to focus on this thing. Let me get closer to this propeller. And I think it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be the roll parameter. I'm going to add a keyframe here and let's move this playhead to frame number 120. And I'm just going to type in here 10,000, perhaps 100,000, or I don't know, 10 million maybe. Yeah, I think that's a good value. I'm going to select both of these keyframes and change the keyframe interpolation to linear. And let's see. I'm going to enlarge this window and bring this thing down here. I don't think I'm going to be able to see them rotating from this angle. But anyways, I think it's going to be fine. So I'm just going to move this window up and close the parameter of this propeller. Let's now bring in the other one. Let's move to frame number 0. I'm going to open up this transform parameter, open up the rotation parameter, and let's add a keyframe here. Let's move to frame number 120. And let me just copy this value from here. There we go. I'm going to now select both of these keyframes and change the keyframe interpolation to linear. And let's close these parameters. I'm going to bring down this window and yeah, I think it is working. So that's pretty much it for this lesson. And in the next lesson, we'll begin our working on the next shot. So I'll see you guys in the next one.